My name is Emily Collins, and after an exhausting year of nonstop work in New York City, I finally decided to take a much-needed break. I booked a flight to Barcelona, a city I'd always dreamed of visiting. The goal was simple: relaxation. I was craving the chance to unwind, explore a vibrant new culture, and escape from the constant grind. I envisioned spending my days wandering through the historic streets, enjoying tapas in cozy cafes, and soaking up the Mediterranean sun. I chose Airbnb for my accommodations because it offered an authentic local experience. I wanted to feel like a resident, not just a tourist. After scrolling through numerous listings, I finally found the perfect place, a stylish, modern apartment right in the heart of the city. It had an incredible view of the sea, and the location was ideal, close to all the major attractions I had planned to visit. The reviews were glowing, and I thought to myself, this is exactly what I need. I imagined waking up to the sound of the city coming to life, enjoying leisurely mornings with a cup of coffee on the balcony, and spending the afternoons exploring iconic landmarks like La Sagrada Familia and Park Güell. Everything seemed to be falling into place, and I couldn't wait to get started. Little did I know, the perfect trip I had planned was about to take an unexpected turn. After a long, exhausting flight from New York, I finally landed in Barcelona. The excitement of being in a new country washed over me as I stepped off the plane and into the vibrant chaos of the airport. The warm Mediterranean air greeted me as I made my way through customs, and I couldn't help but smile at the thought of the adventure ahead. I grabbed my luggage and headed straight for a taxi, eager to reach my Airbnb and start the relaxation I'd been dreaming of for months. As I drove through the bustling streets of Barcelona, I marveled at the unique mix of old-world charm and modern energy. The architecture was stunning, with colorful buildings and narrow cobblestone streets that seemed to tell stories of centuries past. The city had such a lively, welcoming vibe, and I could already tell it was going to be an unforgettable experience. When the taxi finally pulled up to my Airbnb, I could hardly contain my excitement. The building was beautiful, a classic Spanish structure with a modern twist, just as I had imagined. I paid the driver, grabbed my bags, and headed inside. I texted the host to let them know I had arrived and waited by the door. But minutes passed, and I started to feel a little uneasy. I texted the host again just to make sure everything was okay, but there was no response. I called, hoping to hear from them, but still nothing. As the minutes turned into an hour, my excitement started to fade, replaced by a growing sense of frustration. I stood outside the building, trying to reach the host, but nothing worked. Something didn't feel right, and I was beginning to wonder if my perfect trip was going to take an unexpected turn. The hours dragged on, each minute feeling longer than the last. I stood outside that apartment building, clutching my suitcase and watching the world pass by. The excitement I had felt just hours earlier now seemed like a distant memory, replaced by frustration and confusion. I couldn't help but feel utterly abandoned. The city around me was vibrant and alive, but I was stuck in a foreign place, outside an apartment that was supposed to be my sanctuary for the next week, and nobody seemed to care. I had called, texted, and even messaged the Airbnb support team, but there was no response. I began to pace back and forth, my mind racing through possibilities. Maybe the host had forgotten? Maybe they had mixed up the check-in times? But even that didn't explain why they weren't responding to any of my messages or calls. I started to feel like I was in some bizarre dream, where everything was slipping through my fingers. I sat down on the steps outside, feeling defeated. I had come all this way, prepared for an unforgettable trip, and now it was turning into a nightmare. I had read the reviews. This place was supposed to be perfect. The host had been highly rated, and the apartment had gotten glowing recommendations. Yet here I was, locked out and helpless. It didn't make sense. I had made sure to follow all the steps, confirmed the booking, checked the check-in instructions, and arrived on time. Everything should have gone smoothly, but instead, I was left with nothing. As the minutes stretched into hours, I started to question everything. Was this just bad luck? Or was I being taken advantage of? The thought that I might have been scammed crossed my mind, and I felt a sense of dread wash over me. This wasn't just an inconvenience, it was a serious problem. I didn't know anyone in Barcelona, and I certainly wasn't prepared to deal with this situation. It was supposed to be a getaway, not an ordeal. I had never felt more alone. I tried to shake off the rising panic. I didn't want to let fear take over, but the reality of being stuck in a foreign city, without a place to stay, was starting to settle in. The logical part of my brain told me to keep calm and keep trying, but after so many failed attempts to get in touch with the host, it was getting harder and harder to stay optimistic. I had no backup plan. I hadn't thought to make other arrangements in case something went wrong. I was in a foreign city with no friends or family to turn to and no place to go. The sun was beginning to set, and the warmth of the day was fading. The streets of Barcelona were buzzing with activity as locals and tourists alike made their way to dinner or evening plans. The lively atmosphere only made my isolation more painful. I was standing there, alone, with no way of knowing when or if I would be able to get into the place I had booked. By now, I had tried every option available to me. I called the host one more time, no answer. I sent a final message to Airbnb's support team, asking for urgent assistance. The app told me they would get back to me as soon as possible, but as soon as possible was feeling more and more like a distant dream. I felt a sinking feeling in my chest, the weight of helplessness pressing down on me. I had come all this way, and now I was stranded. It wasn't just about finding a place to stay anymore. It was about the fact that I had trusted this system, this process, and it had failed me. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, I realized I was quickly running out of options. I couldn't just stand there forever. I had to figure something out, but where could I go? Every hotel in the area seemed booked, and I had already spent too much time searching for a solution instead of actually enjoying the city. The thought of losing precious hours of my trip, let alone the entire evening, was unbearable. It was then that the feeling of being completely and utterly alone hit me the hardest. In the middle of a bustling foreign city, surrounded by people who seemed to have everything under control, I was left to fend for myself. I had no choice but to confront the fact that this was my problem to solve. There would be no magical phone call, no intervention to save me. It was just me, the situation, and the need to make a decision. The reality was settling in. I had no idea when the host would show up, or if they ever would. My best option at this point was to accept that I was on my own. It was time to figure out how to move forward. I couldn't stand the feeling of being stuck any longer. The city was beautiful, full of life and promise, and I wasn't going to let a situation like this ruin everything. Despite everything that had gone wrong so far, I refused to give up on the idea of having the vacation I had dreamed about for so long. I realized that if I was going to make the most of this trip, I couldn't wait around for someone else to fix the mess I found myself in. The ball was in my court, and it was time to take control. As much as I didn't want to, I knew I had to let go of the idea of staying at the Airbnb I had booked. It had felt like the perfect place when I first saw it online, but now it was just a disappointment. I had tried every possible way to reach the host, and still, no word. I had given the system a fair chance, but the reality was that I had been left to fend for myself in an unfamiliar city. The stress of standing outside that building, waiting for something that wasn't coming, was enough to make me realize I couldn't waste any more time. I needed to find a solution, and I needed it fast. I pulled out my phone again, determined to figure this out on my own. The first thing I did was open up the Airbnb app and search for other available properties nearby. I wasn't sure what I was looking for exactly, just something that would allow me to settle in and start enjoying the trip. I didn't need something fancy or perfect. I just needed a place that would be available right now, where I could lay my head and relax after everything that had happened. After scrolling through a few options, I stumbled upon a listing that caught my eye. It was a modern apartment situated near the beach, and most importantly, it was available for immediate booking. The reviews were solid, and it was in a part of the city that I had wanted to explore anyway. I clicked on the listing and didn't hesitate. This was the place I needed. Without overthinking it, I made the reservation and paid for it right away. The sense of relief that washed over me as I confirmed the booking was like a weight lifting off my shoulders. I had a place to stay, and I wasn't stuck anymore. Once the booking was confirmed, I gathered my things and made my way to the new address. I couldn't help but feel a small spark of excitement as I walked through the lively streets of Barcelona again. This was it. The city I had dreamed of exploring. The opportunity to finally enjoy everything it had to offer. I wasn't going to let this setback control my experience. The new apartment was a short walk from where I had been standing, and within minutes, I arrived at the building. The lobby was clean and modern, and when I reached the apartment, I was greeted by the host, a friendly local named Marta. She was warm and welcoming, and as soon as I stepped into the apartment, I knew I had made the right choice. The space was bright, spacious, and beautifully decorated, with a cozy balcony that overlooked the beach. It wasn't the same as the Airbnb I had originally booked, but it was everything I needed and more. I felt an overwhelming sense of relief as I unpacked my things. For the first time since arriving, I could finally breathe. I had found a new place to stay, and it was perfect. No more stress, no more waiting around. I had a new home base in the city, and I was ready to start my vacation all over again, this time with a fresh perspective. The initial frustration I had felt was fading, and what remained was a sense of empowerment. I had taken charge of the situation, made the best of things, and found a solution that worked for me. As I settled in, I reflected on how far I had come in just a few hours. I had gone from being locked out and unsure of what to do next, to finding a place that exceeded my expectations. The lesson was clear. When things don't go as planned, you have to stay flexible, act quickly, and adapt. There was no reason to let one bad experience dictate the rest of a trip. I had learned to trust myself and trust that no matter what, I could find a way to make things work. Walking into my new apartment felt like stepping into a completely different world, one that was calm, welcoming, and full of possibilities. As soon as I closed the door behind me, a sense of relief flooded over me. The chaos of the last few hours melted away, and I finally allowed myself to take a deep breath. I had done it. I had found a solution in the middle of an unexpected crisis, and it was more than just a roof over my head. It was the beginning of a much-needed reset. The apartment was just what I needed. Cozy, modern, and perfectly located. The warm Mediterranean light streamed through the windows, casting a golden glow over the clean, minimalist furniture. I took a moment to soak it all in. It wasn't the place I had originally planned to stay, but it felt like the universe had led me here, as though the setback had been part of a bigger plan. The stress of being locked out, of feeling lost in a foreign city, was behind me now, replaced by the excitement of exploring Barcelona from a fresh, new starting point. I wandered around the apartment for a bit, settling my things in the bedroom before taking a seat on the balcony. From there, I had a perfect view of the beach and the bustling street below. The sound of the waves crashing against the shore was soothing, a reminder that I was in a beautiful part of the world, and that nothing could take that away from me. The energy of the city was palpable, yet here I was, in a peaceful space, ready to recharge. As I sat there, I thought about the series of events that had brought me here. Just hours earlier, I had been stranded outside an apartment building, trying desperately to get in touch with a host who wasn't responding. The uncertainty, the frustration, it had all felt overwhelming. But now, in this new space, I felt a sense of accomplishment. I had taken charge of the situation. I had refused to let an obstacle ruin my trip. And, in the end, I had come out on top. There was something empowering about overcoming that initial setback. It made me realize that I had the power to make decisions, to adjust my plans, and to trust my instincts. I had been knocked down, but I had gotten back up. It wasn't just about finding a new place to stay. It was about taking control of my experience, refusing to let frustration define my time in Barcelona. That evening, as I ventured out into the city, I couldn't help but feel a renewed sense of confidence. The city felt different now. I wasn't the confused tourist struggling to find her way anymore. I was someone who had faced an obstacle head-on and came out stronger for it. I strolled through the narrow streets of Barcelona, passing by quaint cafes and shops, feeling a newfound appreciation for the beauty around me. The sense of victory wasn't just about the apartment, it was about my ability to navigate the challenges that life threw my way. The night ended with a delicious dinner at a small local restaurant. The food was incredible, the atmosphere relaxed, and for the first time since I arrived, I felt at peace. I had learned an important lesson. Things don't always go as planned. But that doesn't mean they won't work out. It's all about how you respond to the unexpected. I could have let the whole situation ruin my trip, but instead, I chose to adapt, to find a better option, and to keep moving forward. As I walked back to my apartment that night, the city lights twinkling around me, I couldn't help but smile. Barcelona had already begun to feel like home, even though I had only just arrived. And now, with my new place secured and my confidence restored, I knew I was ready to fully embrace everything this beautiful city had to offer. What had started as a stressful, frustrating experience had turned into a victory, one I would carry with me for the rest of my journey. As I sat back in my new apartment that evening, savoring the quiet after the whirlwind of the past few hours, I couldn't help but reflect on the lessons I had learned from the situation. What had started as a simple vacation had turned into an unexpected challenge, but in the end, I realized it was a lesson in resilience, adaptability, and trust in myself. The first lesson I took away was the importance of flexibility. Things don't always go as planned, no matter how much preparation you put in. I had done everything right, booked the apartment, read the reviews, and followed the instructions. Yet I still ended up standing outside, waiting for a host who never showed. In that moment, it would have been easy to give in to frustration and disappointment, but I knew I had to stay flexible. I couldn't control what had happened, but I could control how I reacted to it. Instead of letting the situation spiral, I chose to take action and find another solution. That flexibility not only saved my trip, but it also gave me a newfound sense of empowerment. Another important realization was the power of self-reliance. When you're in a foreign city with no backup plan, you quickly learn how much you can rely on yourself. While I had hoped for support from the Airbnb host and customer service, I soon understood that, at the end of the day, it was up to me to make things right. I wasn't going to sit idly by and let someone else's mistake ruin my vacation. I picked myself up, dusted off the frustration, and figured out what I needed to do to move forward. In life, you can't always depend on others to fix things for you. Sometimes, you have to take charge and be your own advocate. Perhaps the most valuable lesson, though, was the importance of not letting a single setback define your experience. It would have been so easy to let the situation overwhelm me, to dwell on how unfair it felt, or to waste my precious vacation time stressing over things I couldn't control. But as soon as I decided to look beyond the frustration and take action, I realized something crucial. Every setback is an opportunity for growth. It's how you handle the bumps in the road that shapes your journey. Instead of letting the situation ruin my trip, I used it as an opportunity to prove to myself that I could adapt and thrive even in challenging circumstances. Now, as I reflected on my decision to move forward, I felt a deep sense of gratitude for the experience. Yes, it was a frustrating situation, but it also made my trip richer. I wasn't just exploring Barcelona, I was also discovering new strengths within myself. The lessons I learned from that day would stay with me long after my trip ended. Life is unpredictable, and things don't always unfold as planned. But what matters most is how you respond. Do you let the challenges break you down, or do you find the strength to move forward, learn, and grow? In the end, I realized that the journey was never just about the destination. It was about how I handled the unexpected, how I trusted myself to make things right, and how I turned a frustrating situation into a valuable experience. It was a reminder that, no matter where you are or what happens, you have the power to shape your own story. And when things don't go as planned, it's okay, because sometimes the detours lead to the best parts of the journey. If you want to join me, please subscribe to the channel to wait for the next story. Goodbye and see you again.